Welcome, everyone. I'm Bridget Cook-Burch, and I am so excited and delighted to introduce you to a brand new author who has an extraordinarily powerful story. This is Todd Boczkowski, and we're going to have him share with you the name of his book and what this powerful story truly is all about.
Sure. So the title of my book is called My Two Angels, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. And it's a story of how I discovered that my father killed both my mother and my stepmother. And I show how I navigated through that at the time as a child. And then, of course, navigating life's trials and tribulations as I move forward, and really accepting my childhood and my life and everything that encompasses that.
Wow. So there's not a lot of people, fortunately, who have that kind of background, but it's not only really compelling, but it actually sculpted a lot of your experiences as a child and as a teenager. But I'd love to know, is there a specific life event that you experienced to where you said, I have to write a book? I have to write a book, and it has to be this one.
It's really been in the back of my mind for many years. My story has been in the public domain for a number of years, but it's really when I started to realize that, I can have control over my narrative. And that's something that for so many years, I didn't feel like that I had. I was just a child when these events occurred. It did make media headlines. And so the older that I got, I started to really realize that the real narrative didn't necessarily belong to me as a person. And that really did bother me on a few different levels. But I realized that, I can have control of my own narrative if I want to.
Beautiful. What an extraordinary way to take back your power, your personal power, and your own narrative, your own story. That's really extraordinary. What did you discover about yourself along the way?
That I have gone through a tremendous amount of trauma. I think that especially writing it, and even living through it, really, you kind of forget about the mundane things that, are still traumatic, but you still don't really realize it until you actually go back and kind of experience it. Because when you go back and write it, you're essentially re-experiencing those things. And so just things that I didn't realize that affected me, I realized that whenever I was writing that this was kind of a big deal, or I realized that it had a larger effect on me than I initially thought.
Interesting. So would you share with us maybe one aspect of the book or one experience that surprised you?
I think for me, letting go of the processing and the journey of itself. I do remember that I tried to control the timing of this journey, of when this book is going to be released, and I had to let go of that. And I realized that the more that I let go of wanting to control that piece of it, the more that, I felt okay. So I felt more okay and more secure the more that I let go and just be like, this, whenever it comes out is whenever it comes out. I stopped trying to say, what, or I stopped trying to be so hard on myself when it came to that.
Which is tremendous, because as a child you were quite hard on yourself, and it was a pattern that carried through. I remember as you were working on your story, it was also something that you were seeking to continually watch for, because you'd gotten better and better, now doing some of these amazing things that you're doing. So tell us, who do you want to reach with this book? Who do you hope picks up this book, and what would you want them to know?
Really kind of three pockets of people that I'm really trying to drive home to and really reach. And those are trauma survivors, veterans, military veterans, and entrepreneurs. But really anyone who has experienced some turmoil in their life or really wants a powerful message to resonate with them, to realize that you can go through very hard times, some very hardships in your life, and you can turn it around. You can find something about that situation and make it into a positive. Something that I realized along my journey was every situation comes with a lesson and a resource. It is up to that person to find whatever that lesson is and then unlock that resource for them to use for the future.
Beautiful. And one of the things that I love about this book is, you're talking about some really strong true crime elements, and people who are fascinated with true crime will definitely be fascinated with your story. But I also love that you have transformational elements to it, transformational true crime. You have some spiritual aspects, you have some deeper parts of yourself as you're speaking, with a message to those who have undergone trauma. What was it inside of you, or what would you like to share in which you decided, I'm not going to keep this on a true crime level. I'm actually going to have something compelling for people to read that will change their lives?
Great question. And, I think back to a podcast episode that, I recently did, and it involved true crime, but it more focused on the quote unquote, the victims of true crime, their families, and what they go through, what they experience. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people, they're fascinated with true crime, and I, can understand that, but also at the core of my life and at the core of what I experienced is also there's a whole other layer to that. And that's what it is. It is trauma. No matter how you look at it, true crime does involve trauma. And so I wanted to incorporate that into my life, into my book, because it is a part of my life. The things that I experienced in my life that, were transformational. It's a very spiritual experience that I experienced that, you all will have to read about. But I wanted to incorporate that as well, because that has shaped me into who I am now, who I am sitting before you. And, that's what part of what a memoir is, right? It is, incorporating the different phases of an individual and as they go through life. And so I really wanted to encapsulate and really encompass that aspect of my life and that experience.
I know you've been working on some extraordinary things since you returned from Afghanistan, since you've been writing your book, since you have been making these incredible interpersonal transformations, and then also with others on the planet. Will you share with us what you're up to? What are you doing, and what are you creating in the world, and how will this book be a part of it?
Great question. So I am a resiliency coach. It's an aspect of a life coach, if you will. And so essentially I help other people increase their mental, emotional, and physical health. And I do that through various programs that I have. One is a nervous system boot camp. Another is just really deep, intensive, clearing out of old trauma. And so I went and got certified as a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. I'm also certified in what's called as matrix therapies. And so there's many different aspects of healing. And so that's what I wanted to be able to focus on was healing, and more specifically, healing unhealed trauma, the bettering of the mind, nervous system work, and all of these different types of modalities that may not be well known, but they're also very powerful, very effective. And of course, I'm using myself as exhibit A in everything that, I am doing and providing out to the world.
As you mentioned, you've undergone some extraordinary trauma as a child and then later in the military and many other situations and circumstances along the way. But what I love seeing is how you have blossomed as a being into someone who has used these situations and circumstances to grow from, to learn from, to get better. And now you've turned this around to such a degree that you have these beautiful skill sets, like the neuro-linguistic programming. NLP is a really strong modality, and these other modalities that you've done. So that's something to really celebrate. I think that's beautiful. How can people find you? Where can they look you up? How can they connect with you?
People can find me on social media. So I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Todd Boczkowski, and I'm sure if you just copy and paste my name in any one of those platforms, bam, you should be able to find me, because my name is a little bit hard to remember and spell. So if you just use that copy and paste there, it'll make your life a whole lot easier.
Todd, what is one lesson that you have learned through all of your experiences in life that you would like to leave with someone today?
That you have the power to change your own life. You have the power to move forward with your life. You have the power to change the things around you. You have the ability to change your mind. You have the ability to change your health. All of the power exists within you.
What would be your message of hope to your reader?
What people will eventually read in the book is how I came to forgive my father for killing my mother and my stepmother. And it's a very powerful part of my writing. And it's also been a very powerful part of my life. It's what ultimately really, really, truly kickstarted a lot of my deeper healing. And so being able to forgive someone who has, really done a lot of unforgivable acts is very powerful. And I think that a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions when it comes to forgiveness. Forgiveness is all about yourself. And so when I'm not condoning what my father had done, but what I was able to do was I was more able to forgive myself. And so forgiveness was really a gift to myself. And I think that if more people can really tap into the resource of forgiveness and forgiving of themselves, not only are they giving themselves more hope, but eventually it will lead to more peace, more acceptance and peace of their past or their trauma.
Fantastic. Leads me into something too, because there were different levels of betrayal that you experienced along the way from your father. And some of this had to do with the fact that he continued to lie to you well into your adulthood. And so there were these different layers of betrayal and trauma. And did you find that as you forgave him for yourself, as you mentioned, not for him necessarily, but for yourself, did you find degrees of freedom in different aspects of your life?
I did, and that's what I mean by, like, it really kickstarted my deeper healing. I was already starting to, heal from certain things from my past, but being able to forgive allowed me the freedom to, forgive other people, to forgive, look at other situations with more compassion. It ultimately led me to wanting to control my own narrative with this story. And so it ultimately led to me of writing of this book. So, there's so many different levels that it can really dive into.